leadership. They created a crime or tried to create a crime instead of investigating a crime. The FBI's job is to investigate crimes. The FBI's job is not to create crimes. The FBI tried to create a crime to then use it as leverage to get dirt on Donald Trump that they just assume because their hatred of the president that there was dirt because they hated the president. And then, again, if you're a parent, I want you to think about General Flynn for a moment. General Flynn's told by these lawyers after they come after him that they're going to give you the, quote, Manafort treatment, meaning they're going to try to put you in prison for a long time. They're also going to come after you in all your weak spots. And this is Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, McCabe, Comey, the whole group of the deep state of the FBI under Obama. They're going to come after you. They're going to come after your kids. I don't believe that Flynn would have ever pleaded guilty the way that he did if it wasn't about the being terrified that they were going to try to put his kids in jail. And fathers and mothers will do things for their kids. They will protect them. I will protect my kids. And if you're sitting there saying, I'm going to nail you, and you know, by the way, if you're General Flynn at that moment, that the FBI is not playing by the rules. Okay? Let's be clear about this. The FBI is not playing by the rules. They're making up the rules. They've created a crime out of thin air against you. They're coming after you. They're bankrupting you. You're having to sell your house. You have all of your funds depleted. You served your country. You're working in the White House. You meet with them out of goodwill. And there's another part of this, too, that I think has been overlooked. When the FBI called General Flynn, if there was anything that he thought he had done in his life that was illegal at that point, I think he would have probably gone to the White House counsel and said, hey, I need a lawyer, or would have called his own lawyer. If you know that you're guilty of something that is a crime, or you know that you committed a crime, or you know that you pushed the limits on something that could be a crime, and then your phone rings from the FBI, if you think of when the FBI calls you and says they want to talk to you, you're gonna go really quick to the cover your ASS, oh my gosh mentality. I'm breaking out in a cold sweat. What is happening? What's going on? Flynn didn't react that way. Why didn't he? He didn't because he didn't think there was anything wrong. He probably thought when they called him, they need help from me and I'm serving my country. I'll happily talk to you, the FBI, because I can't imagine it be even about me. What's even more disturbing than that is this interview that James Comey did when he was on his tour, book tour, whatever the hell it was. And Mr. Producer, if you'll cue this up because I want to play it. Where James Comey is asked a question, and the person who's asked the question is being honest. Like, how the hell did you get 2 FBI agents into the White House? How did you even pull that off? And what James Comey does, he brags about breaking FBI protocol and says what he did would never have been allowed to happen under the Bush administration or the Obama administration. Would have never been allowed to happen. And he basically said it was so early on in the Trump administration that they didn't know what protocol was. So I screwed them. And he's bragging about it. Does this sound like the FBI that you would want to trust moving forward? I wouldn't. Does this sound like an individual that's being ethical at all? No. Comey is literally bragging about, hey, I didn't follow the FBI protocol. I did not give Flynn what I would have given anybody else under the last 16 years of administrations, 8 years of Bush, 8 years of Obama. And I figured out that these guys were new to town and I screwed them. And he's proud of it. That is abuse of power. I'm going to play that audio for you, and then I'll get your reaction to it. 1-877-381-3811. Here is James Comey, in his own words, bragging about screwing the Trump administration, screwing the White House, screwing the protocol. All of this. Take a listen.
Now, and it's hard to imagine 2 FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. The protocol, 2 men that all of us have perhaps increased appreciation for over the last 2 years. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over. And so we placed a call to Flynn, said, hey, we're sending a couple guys over. Hope you'll talk to them. He said, sure. Nobody else was there. They interviewed him in a conference room at the White House Situation Room, and he lied to them. And that's what he's now pled guilty to.
What did he think they were coming over there for?
I don't think he knew. No, we didn't tell him. Just said, we've got sending over a couple of agents. I want to ask you some questions. I didn't have this conversation. My deputy director did. But hope you got a few minutes. You can sit down and talk to them. And he said, sure.
And he said, sure. Why did he say sure? 1, because he didn't think there was anything he needed to worry about. 2, he wouldn't imagine that the FBI would screw him or set him up or try to create a crime that did not exist. They were not investigating a crime when they met with him. They were trying to create a crime. This is under the leadership of the man you just heard, James Comey. We also found out how this interview even happened, which is even more disturbing. We found out that this crime has to do with, yet again, Peter Strzok, that disgraced FBI agent. I'm going to give you the details of that coming up next on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, Ben Ferguson Show. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back. It is Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin, tonight. Really nice to have you with us. Don't forget to watch Mark on Fox News this weekend. He's going to have one heck of a show. I'm going to give you some details on that coming up a little bit later. But I want to get back real quick to this other shocking release of information that people need to understand. Not only did the FBI set up Flynn, they knew they didn't have anything on Flynn, and that's the reason why they had to create or try to create a crime to charge him with, because there was nothing to investigate. You don't believe me? Records have now been released that show that disgraced FBI Assistant Director Peter Strzok intervened when the FBI, the people below him, moved to close the Flynn investigation. Why? Due to lack of, quote, derogatory information. These new unsealed FBI memos show that the Bureau found, quote, no derogatory information on former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn while investigating his alleged Russian contacts. And they moved to close their investigation on him in early January 2017. Before, former FBI disgraced agent Peter Strzok intervened, asking and begging to keep the case open. The documents, which were released Thursday by the Department of Justice, show that Flynn was given the codename Crossfire Razor and investigated in a spinoff of the case that the FBI also had, their bigger case, which was called Crossfire Hurricane. What was that? Well, in essence, it was the surveillance of the 2016 Trump campaign. By the way, remember when President Trump said that his campaign was spied on and the media said he was crazy and losing his mind. Yeah, it happened. You guys are idiots. A case in which the infamous Steele dossier played a central role, according to the DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz's December report. Now, Flynn, who pled guilty to lying to the FBI about Russian contacts in January of 2017, has obviously moved to withdraw that guilty plea, and now they are saying they're going to drop everything against him. He said, look, I never lied to federal investigators. What I did do is protect my family. And they were investigating a crime and said what they were doing was trying to create a crime. Now, thank goodness the Attorney General Bill Barr asked this outside prosecutor from the office of the U.S. Attorney in St. Louis to review the Department of Justice's handling of Flynn's prosecution. Flynn's defense has argued that the retired Army general was, quote, deliberately set up and framed by corrupt agents at the top of the FBI, specifically to get him to flip on Donald Trump. But the FBI moved to close that case on January the 4th, 2017. Let me say that again. The FBI, we now know for a fact, moved to close the Flynn case on January the 4th, 2017, before they interviewed him, quote, after finding that Flynn had no contact with a Russian individual whose name is redacted from this release, and that Crossfire Razor, which again was to investigate him, was, in their words, no longer a viable candidate as part of the larger Crossfire Hurricane umbrella investigation. So what happened? I'll tell you exactly what happened. A guy named Peter Scumbag Strzok happened. What did he do? We've got the text messages. I'm going to read them for you next. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
When the going gets tough, a tough get. Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
All right, welcome back. Mark Levin Show, Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. I would love to get your reaction and your comments about the FBI. We now know is closing the investigation of Flynn because they said there was nothing there, and then it got to stay open because of one person, Peter Strzok. I believe that Peter Strzok should be held accountable at the hands of the law for this. And again, the DOJ admits the Michael Flynn case that the FBI knew what they were doing, knew there wasn't anything to investigate, and knew when they went to go meet with him that there was nothing they were investigating criminally. They were trying to get him to commit a crime. And we got it all in the notes now. I would love to know your reaction to this. You can tweet at me at Ben Ferguson Show. I'd love for you to follow me there and on Facebook, Ben Ferguson Show. We'll also take your phone calls, 1-877-381-3811. Now, the FBI's closing communication was filled in the D.C. field office. This is going back to when they were trying to shut down this inquiry into Flynn. They did this on January the 4th, 2017. Guess what happened? The same day they said there's nothing here. There's nothing with Flynn. He's done nothing wrong. He hasn't talked to the person we thought he would have talked to. There's nothing. Let's shut this thing down. This spying on Flynn, I would argue. The same day, you guessed it, Peter Strzok, who interviewed Flynn in the White House, later that month on January the 23rd, texted a redacted individual, apparently Flynn's case agent, to ask, quote, if you haven't closed Razor, that's the investigation into Flynn, don't do so yet. Please keep it open for now, Peter Strzok asked. He then emailed his former mistress, which I don't really care about that. That's what he's most famous for, and he shouldn't be anymore. It should be for this. Telling her that it was serendipitously good that the case was still open. Now, you get the actual text messages here, all right, because I want to go through these. You look at what was actually said by Strzok to Page. And I want you to think about how sick this is. You know there's nothing there. You know that Flynn's done nothing wrong. You're obsessed with getting Trump out of office.